What's up, DIY Queens? It's your design bestie, Kara Newhart, and this is Make Space.
Dean, welcome to Make Space.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So just to set the stage a little, the goal on the show is usually to empower everyday people to create spaces that they love. And sometimes that's very literal, talking to designers. But today I wanted to kind of blur the lines a little bit and talk with someone that's not necessarily a designer, but has, number one, led a very interesting life. And number two, I think is really good at people and connection. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to dive in and, yeah, talk about all of it today.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a very generous, kind intro. Yeah, I think it's funny. You and I don't obviously operate in the same fields, but
yeah,
obviously I'm creating dishes, I'm creating, things, and one hand washes the other. So
yeah,
there's a lot more in common than there isn't.
There is. It's all related and intertwined. And I think actually when we try to separate it, we do a disservice. So I am excited to show people kind of how, intertwined it really is. But I also want to explore, how your home has supported you and kind of your personal thoughts and ideas on home, because I think that's really fun. But I think, first of all, we would need many hyphens to describe who you are and what you do, from chef to dancer to talent agent. And I'm sure there's many I'm missing, but can you kind of give us an overview of how you got here and where you've been?
Yeah, I think it's probably just my ADD. I got
Same.
Very circuitous route to, I think for me, I started dancing when I was 5 years old. So that was something that since I was, 10, I knew I was going to do that professionally. I never thought that food was even on the radar as far as a professional endeavor. My grandmother taught me how to cook.
Yeah.
Around the same time that she put me in dance, if you can believe it, I was a hyperactive kid.
Right.
And it was one of those, cooking was one of those things that kind of focused me. And she had me in the kitchen all the time, and I was helping her, and I would start like cracking eggs and doing things like that. And never ever thought I would make a career of it. I moved to LA as a professional dancer in 1999. I feel like I'm getting older now. It was like the height of all the boy bands, and dance was in every commercial, and it was a good time to be a dancer. Yeah, in LA, it was great.
Yeah.
I did that for a while, and then I went through kind of a crazy breakup that took me to. I was like, I need to get away from LA and Hollywood and all that.
Right.
I went to culinary school at 29, which is very old to do it there. So it's like a whole, it was a big leap geographically and emotionally.
Right.
But I feel like that having that and pouring myself into that really saved me from where I was at that point. It kind of opened the chapter for the next life. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the broad strokes of the career. But I think the main thing is that I've continued to just stay curious. I think people are afraid to make a change or make a career change or make a life change, and you feel paralyzed and kind of stuck in your situation. And I think the more you stay interested and curious about things, the better off you're always going to be. Like for me, I always joke I'm like the king of useless information.
Same. Like fun facts is what I call them.
There is this weird I want to know about all of these things and keep but I'll never run out of things to talk about at a party, and I'll always find
like
common
a weird
ground with somebody.
Right?
Yeah. But it's like you're saying how I love to connect with people, which is true. Like I will always find that thread that connects us and find something that's interesting about, that other person or whatever that may be.
Yeah, I love that so much. There's like so many things to pull on from the food to like a life career change. But I feel like one of the themes is like experimentation, which we talk about a lot in the context of DIY, picking up tools for the first time, doing things in your house. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. How do you feel like that has been a theme for you when making these like big pivots?
What it is? I don't know if it's naivete or what it is, but I just go full bore into whatever it is. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like this beautiful ignorance of just not, not being afraid, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. And I just, like, for me, like, I'm an all or nothing person. I mean, they're in or I'm out. Like, I'm not like halfway with anything.
Yeah.
Which I guess has been the double-edged sword at times, but it's just the way it is. So for me, I just jump right in.
And I feel like there's also like a level of like self-trust. Like, I don't know what I'm doing at all, but I know I'll figure it out. And once you do that in different ways, like it doesn't matter the material or the turn, it's like that self-trust is still there. So it's like, it's just another new thing that I will figure out. Like I've done it before kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think once you've done it a few times, you know, when you're younger and you're like, oh my God, if I, you know, everything seems so, the height, so heightened. It seems like there's the risk and the, you know, the stakes are so high, but it's like, just do it. You may fall on your face, and even when you fall on your face, you're gonna learn something anyways. So just kind of go with God, keep moving forward.
Go for it. Yeah, I love that. So that is also a good creative approach. Like when you're creating, there has to be a level of like, go for it and just try it, because otherwise you'll probably sit around and not make anything, like planning or thinking or kind of in that.
No, 100%. I mean, I feel even the knowledge that I have in the years of experience I have cooking, like there's still things where I'll be going to make a video and I completely like shit the bed on it and like it's terrible. Like I'm like, even at the level of, because I'm, you know, I'm always pushing it to, you know, to the edge and trying to figure out like if I can add a little more of this or a little more of that. And it's like you have to, that's the only way you can find your edge, is by kind of, you know, going a little bit beyond that and kind of go like, okay, cool, I'll dial it back a little bit.
Yeah. But I think that's like a beautiful lesson. Well, especially with food, because it's like such a part of everyone's everyday, and the creative process is like a little more easy to attach to, and the stakes feel like less high. Like if you chop an onion wrong, you could probably just get another onion, where if you like,
or it's still gonna work. It's
still gonna work. Yeah. Where if you break your wall open wrong, like your house could fall down. So it's like, I like the idea of practicing creativity, like with something like that, and then having those lessons like translate over. I think is interesting.
No, I think you're right though. But it's funny how many people are like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to do this, or not. You just literally get in the kitchen or you get in, you know, your DIY space and you just start, you know, tinkering with it. And start small, like you said. Don't just open a hole in your wall and like maybe I don't know. That's a good way to learn.
Right, that's what I do, and it's so far worked out. Like luckily, knock on wood, haven't.
Yeah. A little different when I can just like, if something really tastes like shit, I can just throw the dish out. Or it's like, I would tell people you can eat your mistakes in my world, so that's kind of good too. So you know, if you don't screw it up too bad, it's still
edible. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so okay, I was just at the Better Homes and Gardens like event where it's like home people meet food people, because they feature both in the magazine, and it was so cool to see like the common theme of connection, right? Which I think you, being a very good person, is like really good at this. One of the things that came across as like one of your immediate talents was like connecting with people, and whether it's through our homes, like setting up spaces where we can invite people in and host, or whether it's food, like sharing food, I think those are both across cultures things that we use to connect. So what's your perspective on connection when it comes to food or your own home, how you entertain?
Yeah, no, I think to your point, I think the best way to understand somebody or a culture is by sharing meals. I think it's kind of amazing because it transcends language, it transcends culture. We can all sit down at a table and speak zero of the same language, and we can all have this, you know, enjoy this beautiful meal.
Right.
And just by gestures and smiles and whatever, like you can, you know, there's this shared experience, and that's very, you know, it's rare, and it doesn't happen in all facets of life. But I care more about the people that I'm with, even than the meal that I'm sharing. And I think that's what amplifies that meal and makes it a memorable meal, is the experience and, you know, what we talked about and the things we gleaned and all of the, you know, things we supported our friends in or whatever. Like that all tends to happen around a table. And, you know, if we're lucky to have those experiences, you know, eating 3 times a day, like most Americans, we're very, very fortunate. I don't take that for granted. I think that's the other thing too. I respect that time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be on my phone, and I don't want to be distracted. And I really want to engage and connect with people that I'm sharing that meal with. And I think that at the end of the day, you're going to remember the conversations you had more than like, oh, that steak was so great or whatever. Like that becomes like, you know, the side dish, if you will, to the connecting people.
Right. Or it's a springboard for the conversation. Like it's like something for people to talk about that can then create connection. It's like a, you know, icebreaker, thought starter.
No, it's great. Yeah. And everybody, and of course, that's the great thing about being in food, is everybody has an opinion. Yeah. Everybody is like, they're very much like, I love this, I don't like this. You know, everyone's very opinionated when it comes to food. So it's for me, it's always a fun world to be in because everyone always wants to talk about it or tell me their favorite place or
Right.
ask me what my favorite dish is to cook or
Yeah.
whatever that.
Do you like cook for family and friends a lot, or is it more like that's kind of work and I don't want to do that when I get home kind of thing?
I do it. I cook all the time. I just cooked for friends of mine this weekend where I just showed up at their house with a chicken and potatoes and like this whole roast
That's so
chicken
fun. Yeah.
dinner for them on a Saturday. We did like this kind of like family. It's like family friends I have that are just very dear to me, and like that's the way that we connect is through a meal on the weekends.
Yeah. And are people allowed to be in the kitchen with you, or are you like, no, I need to work, like everybody out?
No, hey, look, I'm all about, you want to have some extra hands, like get it. Like for me, like I'm so used to it. It's funny because even when people are in the kitchen with me, they're like, oh, excuse me. Oh, like I'm used to being in a kitchen where people are bumping into you, moving you, like you're constantly
like fast-paced.
getting, so you learn to just, you just kind of tune those things out. You don't even think about it. I'm just like in my own world doing my thing. But I'd be like, while I'm cooking, I'm talking, I'm maybe having a glass of wine, whatever it is. It's like, it's a very interactive experience.
Right. Which is so fun because it gives everyone like something to do versus just like sit around. I feel like so many times, like when I think of like, what should we do? It's like, we should eat. Like that's all I can think to go do is like,
everyone always ends up in the kitchen anyways, right? Like everyone's always like gathered around the kitchen doing whatever. So it's just like it becomes dinner and a show.
Yeah. And especially like holidays. Do you cook for holidays as well, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Well, that was like, I remember going back, every time I go back and visit my mom for holidays, if I do that, I have to be the one in charge because I don't like, mom's not the greatest cook, but
I love that so much.
No, I mean, I'm always, but it's funny because if I'm around, 100% I'm going to get dragged into the kitchen and be like, is this, taste this or do that? Or, I end up just kind of, like falling into it anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like me. Like if I get put in someone's house, like suddenly I'm looking at paint colors and should I hang the curtains here? And it's like, you don't get out of that at all. It's like,
I feel like that's if you're like a doctor. People are like, well, I have this thing. Like, can you like,
right?
I'm not on the clock right now. I'm not on the clock.
Right? Like I'm just here for fun.
Like people pay me for this.
Yeah. When we think of like hosting and connection, are there ways that you've set up your own home to like facilitate that other than maybe, the kitchen and cooking for people? And
it's funny. The space behind me, it actually was built by one of our mutual friends, Joni Sprague. And it's funny because I was shooting content and creating things in my house, in my space. And I just moved in and I was like, I kind of like, I liked it, but there was just something about it that just didn't feel like, totally succinct and totally like me. And so I called her over and we kind of like came up with this cool, like design, this asymmetric desigin on the shelf behind me. Yeah.
It's so
and like having that, like every time I walk into the house, I look at it and I'm so happy. Like I felt, it makes me, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's funny how, making a space like that creates such a security and confidence and comfort. And now when I shoot my videos and everyone's like, oh my God, like the cabinet is so beautiful. All these things. And people are constantly commenting on it. And so it's like, it's just made me incredibly happy to have it and to be surrounded by talented people who can pull it off in a day's time also.
Yeah, right? But it's like all the layers, right? It's like function, like it has to function well and actually serve its purpose. It is aesthetic, so it's like such a beautiful backdrop when you're creating content. You can feel confident that you're like presenting something well. It's connection, like it has such a special story of like a mutual friend. You got to do it together, like a fun project, and then it's like literally made for you. And so I think when you hit all those 4 things in a space, it's like it's built for your actual life. It's like a whole other layer of special versus like it's pretty like from a photo.
No, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, it's not just like a pretty thing. It's functional. And every single time I do a video, like it is the main backdrop.
Right.
It's the main, aside from me and my cooking, it's the it's the focal point.
Yeah. Are you in like a house or an apartment?
I'm in an apartment currently, so that's the cool thing is that she built it so it's like kind of floating off the wall, so that it, I won't lose my deposit.
Right, like, keep that, put that back in our pocket. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it so much. What do you feel like is a change you've made in your home that's had the biggest impact on your life? And maybe not necessarily this home, but even retroactively, like a time where you changed something where you feel like it actually affected you.
It's funny. I just recently did it.
Yeah.
A friend of mine my friend Virginia is a fantastic artist, and I didn't have much art on my walls, and it just felt like
Yeah.
it's weird, those little finishing touches, and all of a sudden now I have a really beautiful piece of hers over my bed, and like I'm like, oh, it like completes this whole space. And
Right.
it's such a weird thing because I don't think of. I mean, I'm not a designer by any means, and
Yeah.
it's definitely not my strong suit. But I think including more art into, because I love art anyways. I love going to museums. I love experiencing that. And just having more of that in my space. There's such a grounding. Just, I don't know. I find myself just getting lost, like just staring at the paintings.
Yeah. And it feels like complete and dynamic. Like there's something going on versus like blank walls. It's like I live in a box. Cool. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm very much a dude where it's like, okay, it's utilitarian, it works.
Right.
Like, it's
Function.
got
Function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like doing this, I was like, it took me a second to go like, okay, I really need to do that because I was like, I can still make it work and it's like fine.
Right.
But then, yeah, I'm very much a function person. I think that's just like my habit of being in the kitchen too.
Right.
I'm just like, okay, it works.
It works and it's easy and it's but it's such like a spectrum, and I feel like everyone is somewhere different. Like you have aesthetics and function, and it's like a full spectrum. And for me, good design is like when you hit both and it's like a perfect balance. But for some people, like being on one side or the other, whether it's because personality or money, what you can afford, whatever. It's you can be anywhere and it's still valid on that line.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I think having those softer touches is nicer. But like for me in the kitchen, like everything's very like surgical. I want it's like all stainless steel and metal.
Where I'm over here, like we need gold measuring cups and like a pretty ceramic bowl. Like we have to be able to put it on a shelf as decor and then use it. Yeah.
No, I need that. I need your help. I need more of that in my life. Especially when you're making
don't tempt
content.
me. I will come do your whole kitchen. Don't tempt me.
Do it. No, I need more of that because I find myself doing that more now that I create so much content. Is like, okay, well, this thing, like these behind me, like when I pour something into a thing, it's not like I'm just gonna pour it out of like a shitty measuring cup.
Right.
Pretty like blown glass one or whatever. It's like so like I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
When you probably set up your kitchen a little more officially than a regular person would, but when you set up your kitchen, are you thinking about like, this is this prep zone and I'm going to do this over here, and like we're putting things in a flow and a function?
I mean, for me, like I'm so used to setting myself up that way. And in my kitchen, like I have everything in a bain-marie, which is like a metal, container, and so it's all just kind of sticking out where you can just,
see it and grab it. Yeah,
it's very much like ease of use and set up like a professional kitchen. So it's not like the most beautiful, I guess, as far as the kitchen's pretty, but it's not like the the function of it and being able to grab things and have things open and like where I can grab plates and things like that is much more key for me than just a beautiful kitchen where everything's hidden. Like a lot of people have that, everything's hidden, and I'm like
that's what I like. Like, is it a kitchen? We don't know. You can't tell.
Yeah, the thing, like maybe it's the dude thing. I like having my these are my appliances. This is like those are my power tools and my plate.
Right out. Put it on the where I'm like, I have to buy a toaster that's white because if it's stainless steel, like ugh. It's so funny. But
everything matches. Yeah. Everything matches, but like a lot of my stuff is professional looking too. So it's like
well, it's like you want to show it off, and it's part of your like aesthetic is like centering that kind of stuff. For sure. Yeah, that's so fun. I feel like kitchen organization can get people get very opinionated on like, where should the silverware go? And like I've reorganized my kitchen like 100 times, different houses. Like now we're going to try putting this over here and like away from the fridge so that you're not bumping into it.
And then you forget where it is and you're like always pulling the drawer out for the phone.
Or someone comes over to help with dishes and it's like, I don't know where anything goes. So put it on the counter, like done.
Oh my God, that was the one thing I moved into this place rather quickly. I like found it. I kind of moving out of another place and moved to this really quickly. And I walked in. I was like, okay, cool. I love it. I'll take it. Like without even really thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, I was like, where's the dishwasher? There's
not one. Oh my gosh.
There's like this mid-century, like it's this cool like mid-century bungalow vibe. Which it's got a great vibe to it. And it's a big wide open space.
Right.
But I was like, there's no dishwasher in
I would
there.
die.
Like as many dishes as I end up like when I'm shooting a video.
Right.
Or like having people over, it's just like, oh my God. But I know I've gotten gotten very fast and
Right.
efficient.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's like I'd be putting things on like a paper towel, like toast. Like I'm gonna eat off a paper towel, so I don't have to dirty a dish and wash it by
Yeah,
hand.
total pain in the ass.
That's
And then having a
wild.
kid, like having
Yeah.
a 5-year-old, like constantly eating things and making messes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's my meditative time now.
Right. Right.
I've learned how to like
I love
put on a
it.
podcast.
Yeah, and get to it. I could see
Get to
that.
it.
Yeah, I can't touch wet food. It like really, it's a sensory issue for me. But aside from that, I could get.
Oh, you
down
mean
to
like
some-
in the
yeah,
sink?
yeah.
Oh, that bothers you.
It's
You're like,
horrible.
you're one of the. I don't give a shit. Like
Yeah.
I'll literally like stick my hand in the like garbage disposal
Right.
and like grab shit out
Like
of
get
there.
it out. Which is so funny because I did work in like a kitchen, like a sandwich shop, like kitchen growing up, and I would always get stuck on dishes. So maybe I've just had enough of that in my life that I'm like, we're good.
I
Never
think you
again.
have to like make sure you get all that off before you put it in the sink.
Yeah,
So it's
that
not
would
just
be
like- yeah,
right. That might be my core problem is we're not stopping it at the
there you
root.
go.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in New York for so long. Most places in New York don't have garbage disposals, which is
Right.
also very bizarre.
Yeah.
So you get used to like cleaning your plate very well before you put it in the sink.
Yeah. I don't have any here in New Jersey because I'm in like 2 older houses,
Mhm.
which like, hello, this is my job. Why don't I install one in like a weekend? But it's, yeah. Need to get
Yeah,
on
there
that.
you go. There you have a new video idea.
Right?
You're putting in like a 3 horsepower, like,
Right?
put a whole chicken down
Perfect.
there.
Right? Like done. That's what we need. But yeah, apartment living is like no joke when it comes to like little things like that. What did you look for most in the apartment?
Place that I could shoot.
Yeah.
I wanted like a big. I needed nice. Like it's a very deep. It's not as wide. I mean, it's a very very like long, deep space
Right.
that I know I could like set up all my lighting and have enough. I'm actually closer to my background than like when I shoot. The camera's much further away.
Farther? Yeah.
And I just I have enough flexibility, enough room to be able to just kind of shoot all the things I need to do, make it look great.
Yeah. Which is so interesting because it's like each place you live as your job changes or as like different relationships, like the things you're looking for as you move are so different from like place to place and phase of life. So I just think it's so
Yeah.
interesting, like what your number one is. Like mine usually right now is like windows because it's like anything else can be crap and I can make it better,
Okay.
but I'm not like taking out windows and adding them. So this one
Yeah,
doesn't have enough,
yeah.
but
I totally feel you. The other like selling point on this place was the rooms are really large, so I actually gave my son the master,
that's awesome.
and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need a bed. Like all I'm
Right.
literally doing is sleeping in there because he has toys and things. And so
Right.
I'm just
It's like shove you all in one room.
yeah, let him have,
Out of the way.
let
Yeah.
him have the big room
Yeah.
and I deal with it.
Yeah. That's my daughter has like a room and then a playroom and she has like one table downstairs that's like her table because I really have to like contain the kid stuff. It visually is overwhelming. The rainbows and it's too much. It's too
No, I totally feel you, and
Yeah.
I like my son. Like, he'll just come in and just dump a box of Legos, and then not even play with it. I'm like, he likes the chaos, and and we're so different that way.
Yeah.
We're just like he likes the feeling of things out and around, and
Yeah.
I'm so OCD and like cleaning
Yeah.
everything up,
Yeah.
hiding everything,
Mine too.
and color coordinating things, and like
Yeah.
everything's on a hanger.
Organized. I love it. Are you into human design at all? Have you heard of this?
As far as what?
Human design. So it's
I don't
like
know.
personality test meets astrology meets like all these modalities mixed in one. And I find
Wow.
it very fascinating. And there's this one part where it's like your digestion, which is essentially like the way you take in the world.
Mm.
And it's different for everyone. So it's like the way you digest food and or the world. And this is real woo-woo, so don't feel bad if you're not into it. But anyway, there's like
I mean, I've never heard of it referred to as human design,
Yeah.
but I'm all about it.
I should send you the thing and we should do your
Tell
chart.
me more.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like digestion, like my daughter's is like nervous, like she needs
Mm.
chaos to thrive, and mine is calm. So it's like cool, like we're set up for success. And then other ones are like cold or like consecutive, like you really like things one at a time. But there's all kinds of different ones, and it's like
Oh,
very
definitely that's not me. I'm
Yeah.
definitely a person who wants everything organized. Like
Organized,
even if
yeah.
I know I'm going to, do a shoot and completely mess up my space,
Yeah.
I always have to start at zero. Like I have to like
right.
clean everything, make sure everything is like the way that it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, cool. Because I do not function well like with things that are out in like in my sight line. If I don't know, just I'm one of those weird people who just needs it to be
right.
The space I create around me. I have to like to be creative. Like I can't do it in chaos, but
Yeah.
yet I don't do things one like sequentially like you're saying
Right.
either. So
Which
I'm
is
always
so
doing like
interesting. Yeah.
10 different things. So it's like but I think that's probably why I can handle multiple things is
Right.
because there's a structure and an
And
order.
an order.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because it's like people think of creativity, but it's like the approach to creativity can be so different. Like people literally thriving in chaos, but you like giving yourself that order is like you have a structure to work within where now it's like ideas can free flow and maybe those can be chaotic and windy, but there's like somewhere to put them and bring them down into.
I totally agree. And I think it's for me, it's more about having that discipline of just like doing the thing.
Right.
That's, people are like, oh, I'm creative. I'm just over here. I'm over there. Like, no, you still have to have like a through line of it. And for me, like growing up, obviously being a professional, being a ballet dancer since I was 5 years old, like I had that discipline. And then being in the kitchen, you have to be super organized.
Right.
I always tell people too, it's like you have to have, if you just have any option you can have, like it's almost paralyzed. You're like, I don't know. So it's almost like if you're walking into a space in a house, for the most part, like you have the constraints of, most of the walls, right? You blow the whole thing out, but like you kind of go like, okay, this is what I'm working with.
Right.
Now I can create the next thing.
Right.
And I think that people get paralyzed by
choice.
Options.
Yeah.
By having so many options.
Yeah, that's like actually like the analogy.
The same with dating apps now too. If you feel
right?
like
yeah, it's like you don't have to stop and say yes to anything. You can just keep looking. And then you're in a cycle of just like not ever actually making a choice because you don't have to if you just keep searching, like in search mode. But yeah, the analogy I always use for that is like a coloring sheet with like something on it that you color, like there's lines to use or a blank page. Like it's harder to draw with you're starting with a blank slate. And any creative decision is like that. Like design too. It's like if you lock in a rug, now you have paint colors you can pull, or you know that like the finisher should be this color. And you have something to go off of that's structure versus like it could be anything. Like where do you even start kind of thing.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that's the kind of what we were talking about earlier is just that you have to make that first bold choice.
Right.
Go with it.
Yeah. But it is funny, like based on like where your creative path came from, because everyone's is so windy. And I feel like some people went through modalities where it's like very strict and ordered, like dance with like really intense. I know my ballet teachers were so intense and so mean to me.
Right.
And so you kind of learn structure first, and other people it's more of like I just like free flowed and winged it, and then later you learn how to like make it structured. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I always tell people, it's funny. Like Atlas was the other day, he was singing the ABCs, which he knows all these lyrics to all these songs, but then he starts singing the ABCs and he starts like going off the rails. I didn't know what all these letters. And I was like, Bubs, that's like, and I was like trying to have like
new letters. Is he like inventing new letters or like?
They're very
lyrically.
much their own order.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not how the ABCs go. And he's like, Dad, it's the remix.
That's so much.
And I was like, okay, like you got me there. I respect the hell out of that. But I'm like, okay, here. But I always tell people, I'm like, you need to learn the rules before you can break them. Like I feel like that's the thing with, even the most, out there avant-garde artists or whatever usually came with some kind of like classic base or they're well versed in all of the rules of how things work. And it's like, that's when I feel like once you have that under you, then you can start to go, experiment.
Yeah, because then you know why you're doing what you're doing. You're like, here's how I normally do it, but I'm doing it this way because, and you have like a good reason versus just chaos. Like, we're just going to wing it because it's like, it's not well done if it's not like a little bit strategic.
Yeah, luck's not really a great part of any business
plan. Not very replicable. Is that how you say that word? Yeah.
Repeatable, yeah.
Right?
Repeatable, yeah.
Repeatable, yeah. Definitely. It's like you got to be able to scale. So that's always fun. What's next for you? Do you have any fun projects you're working on or any life goals?
Actually, I'm working with a really cool project. This company, you may have seen it in New York area. It's called Cook Unity. Have you seen any of the advertisements for that? So it's this food delivery system that they're collaborating with like high-end chefs and doing like legit restaurant type meals, so that you get all the macros and all the things you want, but it's all done like it's all chef collaborations. So I've been consulting with them and doing like a fun, which is fun because I kind of almost get to run my own little restaurant and share it with the world. And so they have like locations in New York and Austin, Los Angeles, and Seattle.
So how does it work? Is it like a HelloFresh? You get ingredients, or it's like a done for you meal?
No, there's zero like barrier of entry for that. So you just kind of put it in the oven and have there's like also specific. I mean, most people are gonna throw it in the microwave, I guess.
Right.
But like there's specific like instructions on how to do it so that it'll taste as if it was just made for you.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like they're a great company and like super high quality food, and that's kind of one of the things I've been kind of focusing on lately. And it's fun because I get to create new recipes for people to try, which is great. And I've been very fortunate. There's been so much good brand work coming in, and I've just been very, very blessed, especially in the time where a lot of people in LA are not working or wondering when the next thing's gonna happen.
Right.
I've been
busy,
very fortunate. But I think that's the other thing too, is like by creating, and I know that you do this all the time too, it's like the more you put out there, the more you're gonna get back. Right. Work begets work, and the more you create, and I think people, especially in the content creation world, they put out 5 things and they're like, oh, there was no response to that or whatever, or this video did this, and it's like you just have to keep like
pushing it out there,
damping it out. It's like because you can't assume that everyone's going to see that video, right? Or the other video, or like you just have to just keep having those multiple touch points.
Which is also a whole, like, it's so funny how it brings up so many things about you in that process, like entrepreneurship in general just is like a mirror of like you and what you need to work on. But for me, it's like I put out 5 things, and if one isn't a hit, it's like I give up. Like no one likes it. It's my stuff isn't good enough. But it's like creativity. It's like you put it out there. It's vulnerable, especially if it's crickets, and you got to do it all over again. And
that's the thing. I think people are so quick to, and I used to be the same way. Like, I'd be like, oh, that's not getting the views that I want, and like take it down.
Right.
Like,
archive it. Hide it so no one sees.
Or hide it, which is stupid because like now I'm like certain videos for me will do really well. Like I've figured out what like the formula for the ones that are going to do well, but also like I have to be able to be creative and do like sometimes I'll do like chef technique ones, and sometimes those do really, really well, and sometimes they're like over people's head. Right. But they're necessary because it's something that I like, and I know there's a whole swath of people out there who want that thing. So it's like you can't live and die by every video.
Exactly.
I used to be like, like I'd sit there and like refresh and like be watching the interactions, and then I'm like, oh shit, should I take it down, or did I post it at the wrong time? Yeah. It's like you can't. I mean, there's only so much of it that you can obsess over, and once it's out there, it just has to be out.
You got to let it like go on to whatever it is. Yeah, because it's like it's so hard because it's numbers, so it feels like really exciting to have something where you can reflect back like a value, but it's like that's not a reflection of my work.
Like, what the fuck does that mean? Right, like, it doesn't mean anything.
Right, it's just our brains are like trained to view numbers as value, like with money, and so this is like not the same value in any sort of way.
No, it's crazy. That's the thing, we attach this inherent value to. We might love a piece of content, and then it doesn't do well, and then we're like, oh, I don't love it as much, or it's just
like, or like that project wasn't so good.
But it's tough because, as you know, like our revenue is tied into those numbers. So people go, oh, you get X amount of views on your this or your that, and then they'll go, well, then now you're worth this, right? So it's like, even as much as we want to, say that it doesn't matter, like I guess it does matter in a way, because brands look at us and go, oh, you have this many views, or you average this, so you're worth that, right? And it's like,
but I'm worth so much more.
And then you're like comparing yourself to other people who are like, how do they have all these views, and they make shitty videos on their iPhone?
Yes,
and, like, shoot it, like,
which is the way I console myself is like a bad viral video. I'm like, listen, I don't want to be known for that. Like, that guy blew up based on this like video of him being real weird and embarrassing. Like, I want to be known for being me, and so I'm not going to do the gimmicky weird stuff. And like your chef like technique videos, I feel like those kind of things are so important because it's like that's who you are, and that's what you're bringing is like a level of expertise as a chef that needs showcased somewhere, and it might not be the viral video, but for fans, it's like, it's just reinforcing like what you're here to do. So,
well, that's the thing too, to your point. We are so obsessed with comparing ourselves to other people's success
yeah.
that we forget what we bring to the table and
Mm.
what makes us unique. And that's for
Right.
me, I go, okay, like there's these, there's people on TikTok, people on Instagram that have, 10x more followers than I have. But I would get so pissed. I'm like, they're not even a real chef.
Right.
And I was like, oh, but that's what I am, right? So I
Right.
have to represent myself and bring that. So like, started now bringing back the like wearing the white jacket and the thing, and reminding me, because I think people just, they see you and they go, oh, it's another food influencer. I was like, no,
Yeah.
bitch. I mean, like,
Right? Like, this is my real
right.
job. Like, I went to
This is my
culinary
real
school.
job.
Yeah.
I worked in fine dining. Like,
Yeah.
this is my thing, and I busted my ass to, I have a reason that I'm behind all of this. It wasn't
Right.
just like I decided in the pandemic that I was going to start cooking videos.
Right.
about
Like, get your
shit.
code out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, to each your own is great. Like
Right.
I support anybody who's having amazing success, and I think, it makes us all better
Yes.
by seeing more and people just putting themselves out there. And I think that's the thing about social media, is it has democratized this process, for
Right.
better or for worse. And I think, before I would be waiting for, I'd be like, oh, I want to have a meeting with this company or that company, and
Right.
I wanted to host this, or I'm like, now you can create your own luck, and there's such an amazingness in that. And then
Right.
people stumble upon you and they're like, oh wow, you're
Yeah.
new to them, and there's always a new crop of people to teach, something to. And
Right.
even, I think that everyone thinks that everything's been said or every video has been made, and it's like, you forget that there's always a crop of people who are understanding this or learning it for the first time.
Exactly.
So you always want to include those people as well.
Yeah. And they don't want to watch a 10-year-old video. Like, they just got here, but they're not going to go back and watch like the old stuff. Like, they want something timely for them now where they're at.
For sure.
So
it's like finding new ways to put a spin on, obviously I'm sure a lot of the stuff you're doing seems repetitive, but
yeah.
like there's a way to always kind of like find that new spin, or like shoot it in a new interesting way, or like
Yeah.
another tidbit that you can take away.
Right. And it's funny what people take from things. It's like, you make a video and you kind of think like, I'm teaching this. And then people get so sidetracked. Like, the best example is I made these like light
Like,
poles.
what are those pants you're wearing?
Right, what are those pants? Like, let's talk about the pants. But I made these light poles, and everyone wanted to talk about the concrete, whether or not you have to mix the concrete. And some people were here for lights. Other people, it's like all they could see was this little piece. But it's like, that's okay. Now we can do a video about that. And you're kind of guided with what you need to teach, versus like, I could teach anything that I know,
Totally.
and I know so much. So where do I even start? You
I
kind of
love
respond.
that. I love the
Yeah.
feedback. I'm always asking, because too, it does, like you said, it narrows your focus, where
Yeah.
you think it's focused on this light pole, and people are like, I don't even know how to mix concrete.
Right? like back up.
It doesn't occur to you, because now
Yeah.
you have a certain level of skill, and that's what I also have to remember too. Like,
Right.
I've now like gone back to the basics, and I think what we see as trivial or not that important,
Right.
there's someone who's never ever even seared a steak or
Right.
removed the skin off a piece of fish or whatever that is, something
Right.
that I don't even think twice about.
Right? You're just like, zoop,
But-
done. Like,
Yeah,
unimpressive
but
for you.
like,
But
oh, I've done that, and they're like, it's like magic to them.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, oh, that, like, so you kind of
Yeah.
like, it also makes you relearn and refocus, and by teaching, you learn so much more
Yeah.
about what you're doing, and deepens your knowledge of your craft. And so
exactly.
there's always value in kind of going back to the basics.
Yeah. I believe you truly haven't mastered something unless you can teach it. Because unless you
100%.
can help someone else along that process, like, you don't quite know it all. Yeah. You know how you did it, but you don't know how to like do it.
Right,
from
and you'll
every
always learn a new
angle.
thing. You're
Yeah.
100% going to learn a new thing, or a faster way to do it, or like you
Right.
think you knew all the things, and you go back and you're like,
Ooh.
oh, if I did just this or that, just change one little thing, like, oh, that would have, and then you go, oh, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago.
Right.
I was learning to do that.
Yeah. So what's your like big goal in the next couple years? Is it like a
Oh.
show or a book or something?
I've, as far as professionally, I'm always, kind of have my hand in a lot of different areas,
Yeah.
but I think my goal in the next, in the interim, is just like finding peace within myself
Yeah.
and my son, and
Mm.
being an amazing dad. He just started kindergarten, so it's
Oh,
like
that's so
like
fun.
such a new phase.
Yeah.
So just trying to be present
I love
and
that.
set up the professional stuff is always going to be secondary to our kiddos, right?
Yes.
So it's like, how can I be the best dad and show up and not pass down the generational trauma that,
Yeah.
that I'm
Right.
sure that
Oh.
we all have.
Yeah. No pressure. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no pressure. But
Ugh.
yeah, I think that's my focus is just really kind of tapping into me and being easier on myself and just being the best dad that I can.
I love that answer. That's like an answer of someone that's been in a creative career a long time and knows that like things will come when they're meant to come. And when you try to force them, you'll just make yourself sad. So
it's true, but now I leave days where I like, it's funny because I used to be, I'm very disciplined and very regimented, but there are days now that I'll just sit and like be creative or just think or like just do things that are like, well, I'll take really long walks and just kind of have a day to like let those things come to you, because I feel like you're just sitting there like you're trying to do so much, and you lose sight of all of the other things that are, you know, inspiring you and coming into your world.
Absolutely. And if you view like creativity only as like productivity or action, and you don't give it that like passive rest phase where you're like thinking and just like letting yourself rest, then you will just burn out and die and be so sad.
Well, that's the thing. People do that, especially in our world with you're creating content, is like they set themselves up for failure by going like, okay, I have to put out 5 pieces of content this week, and then the next week, like they don't realize that like set a realistic goal. Like I always tell people when I'm telling them on the like management side of things, they're like, how many things do I need to do? And I'm like, first off, figure out what your threshold is. It might be 1 video a week, and if that's it, do that 1 video a week. But it's like an infinite process. It's not something that is like, I'm gonna do 1 video a week for 12 weeks and then take 10 weeks off, and then, you know, or like every other week, and then your audience starts to not engage with it. So it's like I've kind of gone like, okay, I know that I can bear 2 videos a week, and that's like good for me, and it's something that I know that I can still be a super present dad. I can still have enough creative time. I can take care of my own health. Like I know that I can do those things. So it's like I've set myself up going like, okay, and even like this week I'm gonna put out 1 piece, and I was kind of like kicking myself in the ass. Going I'm like, nobody cares at the end of the day. Like I'm not like, you know, no one's sitting there going like, oh,
only 1 video. Like write it down. Like strike for Dean. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously it helps the algorithm to keep putting out. It's more about consistency than just, you know, going through these fits and spurts of like 5 videos 1 week, no videos the next week, 3, and then 2. It's like it's more about consistency. You know, reminding people that you're out there, and also just keeping yourself like, don't just make a video to make a video. I always tell people like, it's like,
because it's gonna be a bad video if you're just checking a box, like truly.
And I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of putting out something to fill a space. Instead of going, you know what, I could have waited and put something out next week when it really like was a much better video. Because then it's all, every time it never fails. The video doesn't perform the way you want it to do. You're just trying to fill a gap in your programming schedule, and just it's always better to just kind of like take a beat and do something next time. Do it right.
And do it sustainably, because that's the only way you're going to be consistent for the long term, is like do it in a way where you don't.
And that's why people get burnt out. It's super burnt out. It's like,
which is also fascinating to watch, like creators that are like pew, and then they just like burn out. And I'm like, I feel for you, like, but I've been here long enough to know that's not the way. Like you're gonna crush and burn.
I'm a grinder though. Like that's my thing. I'm like,
same.
Continuously on the grind and continuously chipping away. And like you said earlier, like I've never, like, as much as I've stressed about money or success or whatever, like I always know that it's always happened. It's always come to me every time, even when I'm like, oh my God, where's it? And then like all of a sudden it's just like, I have to like trust. If you go back to your woo, I have to trust the universe, the flow, keep bringing me those things. And that's why it's like but it's a dance, right? Like you have to create and put these things out and leave yourself open, and then you can kind of be there to receive it.
Exactly. And you need both, because if you're in receiving mode, you'll never do anything. And if you're in overactive mode, you will just be acting and never like stopping to like let it in, the right stuff come.
It's definitely a balance for anybody in, you know, who's a creative or who has a, you know, doesn't have a 9-to-5. You know, I'm not built for corporate America.
Not at all. I survived a year and I was like, I have to go.
I had a brief stint where I worked in hotels, and I was like, this not like, I loved it. I loved going to work. I loved wearing a suit every day. But having to deal with all of these personalities and like expect people to do certain things in a certain way. And,
Right.
you know, especially in LA, everyone was
Yeah.
I'm an actor, I'm a whatever. I'm like,
Sure.
Great. I'm glad that you're an actor. Act like a fucking server for 8 hours.
Right. Like, this is your server shift, so act. That's so good. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
This is really good practice.
right? This is good practice. Pretend you're a server and like, let's see it.
Normal.
Yeah. I love it so much. But yeah, I think that's just to kind of overview, bring us full circle. When you're starting any endeavor, like cooking for the first time or designing your house, like you're predominantly doing a creative thing and you're learning to trust your own creativity. And I love that we wound all the way through that from like seeing your career wind and also talking about like different approaches to your creativity and how to experiment and how to try new things. But yeah, like first and foremost, you're not doing the thing, you're being creative. And so the more ways that you can exercise that muscle, the better you are going to be at it. So yeah, whether you're cooking or doing your house, like hope these tips were helpful. I feel like you had such good insights. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate you having me on. It's like I said that earlier. It's like you have to stay curious and be unafraid.
I like that. That should be like a postcard or a tattoo. Like that's a pretty good quote. Write that down. Should be your new slogan.
Live, laugh, love.
Right? But way better. It's way better. More motivating. Stay curious and unafraid. I like it.
What's up, DIY queens? It's your design bestie, Kara Newhart, and this is Make Space. Thanks for listening. And if you've got more episodes to catch up on, binge on. Don't let me stop you. But if you've got a second, you should come say hi on Insta at MakeSpacePod. And if you're an overachiever, you can also leave a review and I'll love you forever. If you're new here, hit that follow button to officially become a DIY queen and join all the amazing humans tuning in every week.